Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, dial producers, guests, and panelists, and are not necessarily the staff, management, advertisers, sponsors, or ownership of DTD Media or its brands. WGMD 92.7 and 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva, Real News Talk, or Industry News Online.
Now, I know you're going to ask me if the blue slip is constitutional.
Yes, sir.
Well, because the Constitution says each house can make its own rules, the courts will never get involved in crazy things like the blue slip. You can have 217 members of the House that want to discuss something, and unless you get that 218th, the Speaker can block it because that's the rules of the House.
Right.
Each House makes its own rules, and the courts will not interfere.
Well, that audio clip I just played was from the radio edition of Your News Talk America from yesterday. Jake and the Judge Andrew Napolitano, and I were discussing the case of Julianne Murray, who's joining us right now on Your News Talk America, Digital Interactive Friday. Julianne Murray resigned on December 12th as U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware. Julianne joins us now. Julianne, I know you're under the weather today, but I appreciate you coming on with us. The sad part about this is that you couldn't even get an unfair hearing. You couldn't get any hearing. And that's unacceptable. I'm sorry. It just is.
I mean, and it's good to be here. So the issue from my perspective with the blue slips, I agree with Judge Napolitano. And I heard you yesterday where you talked about how you put me on the phone with him a couple of weeks ago, which was fantastic. The Senate can make their own rules, as can the House. But the blue slips are not even codified in the Senate rules. They are just, it's a tradition. So when President Trump keeps talking about it's a tradition, I understand that. The issue, and somebody asked me earlier this week, what would I change? And I said, look, if we can't get rid of the blue slips, like if the Senate is not willing to get rid of the blue slips, then what they should do is not make them an absolute bar. So for those who don't understand, basically because Senators Kuhn and Blunt Rochester, quote unquote, refused to return the blue slip, I couldn't even get before the Judiciary Committee, let alone the Senate. So, in terms of people are like, well, the Republicans have the Senate. Yes, they do. But you can't get to the Senate floor without coming out of committee, and you can't get into committee without having the blue slips. So in terms of, quote unquote, getting your day and being able to, as a nominee, and being able to make the pitch, you don't even get that chance. And that's what is so frustrating about it.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. And if you had any type of hearing before the Judiciary Committee, they could have made a recommendation which could have said, you know what, we find her to be a qualified candidate. We do not think that blue slip should be utilized here. She gets an up or down vote in the Senate, period. I mean, that's really what you're saying, Julianne, right?
It is. And, and I think that, so in terms of so Tom Tillis, let's take him for example. He has said if the Senate does away with blue slips, that he would not would not vote in favor of somebody that did not have the support of their in-state senators. Okay, I understand it. The other thing that I would say is with circuit court or with district court judges, so blue slips come into play in two places: district court judges and U.S. attorneys. District court judges, those are lifetime appointments. I mean, I can see, where there's that additional, I'm going to use the word safeguard. But with U.S. attorneys, you serve at the pleasure of the president. So it can be as short as as a term. It can go on if another president comes along and does not remove you. But I think that even if for instance, Tom Tillis, say that I got through to the Judiciary Committee. Being able to kind of make the case on the merits is what I think we, the people, would like to see. I certainly understand the process, but without, being able to kind of get there. And I think that, I know at the end of the day, what is so frustrating for me is, and I use the word naively on purpose in my, in the statement that I released, I believed that I could get evaluated or would be evaluated on my actual performance, not on the politics. But when Senator Kuhn,
but you always believed that. You told that to me last summer. We were talking about this.
I did. And, and that's just not the case. So now that I've started to push back on this, now, so when Senator Kuhn's originally said that they weren't going to return the blue slips, and just for those that are listening, he did not tell me. I found out in a news article when everybody else found out.
That's typical for Baldy, but go ahead.
Well, the problem is there is a way that members of the Delaware bar are supposed to treat each other. He's a Delaware attorney. I'm a Delaware attorney. I am proud and worked very hard to become a Delaware attorney. And so to not even have the courtesy of a phone call or something to say, hey, we're not going to do this.
And these are the reasons. And these are the reasons why.
Yeah.
Didn't you at least, you gave up your law practice.
I did.
Didn't Chris realize that you at least deserve an explanation of why? Useless Rochester? The fact that she's in the Senate anyway is still hard for me to even fathom at this point. But don't you even deserve the common courtesy, simple respect of, this is why we refuse to support you. This is why the one-party rule in Delaware, and you know this because you were chair of the Republican Party here, this is how dangerous it can be.
It is. And so in terms of the not getting the notice of what was happening, but the original article where I found out I was not getting the blue slips, he did not say that there was an issue with my performance or my qualifications. He basically said that the interview was constructive, respectful, and appropriate. I would agree. But that at the end of the day, his issue with the Trump administration and with with how U.S. attorneys were being handled in other states, that he was not going to return a blue slip. So it's, that's the, kind of the, that's the rub on that. So for me, that certainly feels much more political than performance-based. Now, he's come around a little bit since there's been some pushback on this and has said, well, she doesn't have prosecutorial experience. Doesn't matter. This is a managerial job. And I have criminal defense experience, which is the flip side of the same coin. So it is, I get it. Of course, he's going to push back. But, realistically, when you had your chance to say, I'm not going to do this, if my qualifications or my performance had been at issue, that would have come out at that point. For him to say that at this point is, he's just kind of covering as you know what. And that's the way it is.
Well, from my vantage point is this is just more preventing President Trump from doing what President Trump wanted to do with respect to bringing law and order back to the streets of America. And anything that President Trump wants, they object to. They are going to they are going to put in every possible roadblock that they possibly can. And if it's Alina Habba, if it's yourself, if it's the I guess the acting or assistant now in Los Angeles.
First assistant.
First assistant, yeah.
Hey, these titles are very important.
They are. But if you see what happened in Los Angeles just last week with a domestic terror organization, you were dealing, without getting into specifics, not that I know specifics, but there was an issue up in New Communist County where someone was picked up under the suspicions of working on behalf of terrorists. These are very dangerous times, and to play with the U.S. Attorney's Office the way the Demcoms are doing it, Julianne, again, is more evidence that they don't care about the safety of the American people. It comes right down to that, in my estimation. Your response.
I would agree with you about that, and and I think that, and I'm happy to discuss, why. So in terms of why I resigned and what was at risk, with why I did that. Do we actually do a break in this, or do we go straight through?
Yeah, we're going to be break. Well, actually, let's break now because we've got a bunch of questions that have been uploaded for you on Dial. It's been a while since you've been on. Well, we know why you haven't been on, but that's another story. Oh, by the way, Ava loved your Christmas present from you and Patrick.
I'm so glad.
It's almost all torn up.
Hey, my god dog, only the best for my god dog.
We'll be talking about that with Julianne Murray. Julianne is joining us, the former assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Delaware, former Delaware attorney, my former colleague at the Talk of Delmarva, host of Tipping the Scales of Justice. She's joining us to talk about her decision to resign back on December 12th. More with Julianne Murray in just a moment. Stay with us.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, dial producers, guests, and panelists, and are not necessarily the staff, management, advertisers, sponsors, or ownership of DTD Media or its brands. WGMD 92.7 and 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva, Real News Talk, or Industry News Online.
Let's welcome back to Your News Talk America on this Digital Interactive Friday. Julianne Murray is joining us. Julianne, at what point did you say, you know, there's just no way I'm going to get a hearing? I think the best thing to do for my department and for the president is for me to resign and move on. At what point did you come to that realization, if I may ask?
When the Third Circuit opinion came out. So just in terms of my interim period ended on November 10th. On November 7th, I resigned as the United States Attorney and was immediately made what is called the First Assistant United States Attorney. And so the U.S. Attorney spot was vacant. I became the first assistant, and the first assistant by statute becomes the acting U.S. attorney. This is a model that they used for Alina Habba, Bill Asaeli, Sigal Chadha. It's been used in about 6 different jurisdictions. Heading into that, I was concerned because other jurisdictions had legal challenges from defendants who said, hey, you can't charge me because the United States attorney is not validly appointed. And I delegated my authority to my first assistant, who became my executive assistant U.S. attorney, to my chiefs, so that I was not actively involved in any of the documents that were flowing out of our office. I wanted to try and keep Delaware from having any legal challenges. When the Third Circuit opinion came out the Monday after Thanksgiving, it ruled that the scheme of making the former U.S. attorney the first assistant and then elevating that person to acting was not okay. Basically, that it was, that it violated. There's 2 different statutes that are in play, and so because it was, and in this case it was Alina, she was quote unquote disqualified. Well, I'm also in the Third Circuit. So Third Circuit has Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. And so it was, I looked at that and I went, okay, well, that's going to be, we still had not had a legal challenge here in Delaware, but knew it was coming. And basically for me, and you referenced it, I mean, the UD case that we're talking about with the, with the manifesto and all of that, imagine if that case, if I'm ruled as not properly seated, if that case gets dismissed because I, was not in, I'm not properly seated. And I just was not willing to do that. I mean, my office, we have great prosecutors in this office who are working their tails off. And I just did not want to risk that my office, the people who worked with me were willing to defend those suits if they came. But at the end of the day, defending those suits was going to take time away from the mission, which is...
And resources away from the office, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I actually reached out to the Department of Justice and my first assistant, Ben Wallace, who I picked him, as my first assistant. I said, find out if the court is willing to quote unquote hold him over, like they were not willing to do for me. And if they are, I'm out. And, and it took a few days, but ultimately, I stand by the decision for the betterment of my office and for the mission that I needed to step aside and that Ben needed to become the U.S. attorney.
When the president nominated you as U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware, police agencies around the state were highly supportive of that.
They were. And in just terms of real technical, I was never nominated. He picked me. Everybody knows that. He picked me. But because back to our blue slips, the administration wants to make sure you have a blue slip before you're formally nominated in most cases. So there are people that say, well, he never nominated her. Well, he didn't nominate me because they couldn't get the cooperation from the senators. But in terms of the law enforcement agencies, yes, this state, I have a great relationship from when I ran in 22. They were very excited that I was the U.S. attorney. And so what I'm doing currently is I'm actually still with the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office. Ben and I actually swapped roles. So I am the executive assistant United States attorney, or first assistant. I'm kind of both right now. And I'm staying there for the time being. because I want to make sure to hand off those relationships the best that I can to Ben. I want the agencies, particularly the Sussex County police chiefs, we're so happy to have somebody from Sussex County in that federal
Imagine
seat.
that, right?
And so I want to make sure that they are comfortable and believe that they're going to be represented by Ben. And so I'm going to make sure that handover happens.
Let's get to some dial questions, Julianne. Wolf is up first, asks you, is there any movement in the Senate to eliminate blue slips? Well, I say not until the 17th Amendment is eliminated from the Constitution, but go ahead.
As far as I know, no, there is not. I mean, I think there is what Speaker Kuhn has said is there's just not enough. There's not enough support, even from people that are not on the Judiciary Committee, from the Senate itself. Now, the irony of that is they're saying that they don't want to do that because they know that when the Democrats come back around, it'll be a problem. Earth to them. The Democrats are going to be a problem anyway. If, when it comes back around, if the Democrats take back the Senate, the blue slips are gone, the filibuster's gone.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
You'd better believe it. There's no question. That's the way they operate, sadly. Yeah. Producer Bob wants to know and says, you became President Trump's favorite MAGA Republican leader and lawyer from Delaware. Would you ever consider returning to Delaware to lead the Delaware GOP again if the opportunity to do so were to occur in the future? And you say?
No.
There you go. I already knew the answer to that question, but
I left off the FCC violative words.
I could have hit the button. I had the button right here, Julianne, so it's not a problem.
I'm done.
All right. Vicky says, Merry Christmas to you. I'm not sure who Vicky is, but maybe you know who Vicky is. But Vicky says, Merry Christmas to Julianne Murray. Okay.
I think I know who that is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see what is that the last question that we have for you? I think it is. Okay. That's the last question unless, no, maybe not. No, there's more. Hold on a second. Let me click here and see if there's more questions here. Okay, no, I did get them all. Okay. So, Julianne, short and long-term plans. We know that you're still in the office. There is a long-term plan, I guess, for you to do something else for the administration. Is that true? That's what media outlets are reporting.
Well, I mean, what I put in my statement was that I'm, going to continue to work for the Department of Justice in another capacity. I'm doing that currently. I'm evaluating whether I have the ability, if I want to work for what I'm going to call Main Justice, but actually stay in Delaware, basically work, so I don't have to go to D.C. Thinking about that. I also have the ability that I can go back to private practice if I want to. I wouldn't go back to my firm, but I could go back to private practice. And so, I mean, this is just right now, we're down in South Carolina, and I just needed, I don't know if anybody can fully appreciate how difficult the last few weeks have been. I mean, I knew going in that, yes, I was an interim U.S. attorney, but, thought that there would be a fair shake. And just, really went all in, gave up my law practice. I mean, and I know that you said that, but I mean, just imagine people who are listening to this, just, going all in on something and having it just completely get blown up. It is difficult. Now, I've bounced back. I mean, both times I ran for office, I ran my practice down to 0 and then rebuilt my practice. But it is certainly time for me, at this point, I can kind of take stock and decide, hey, do I want to rebuild in Delaware, or do we want to fully relocate to South Carolina? I don't know. And I mean, Pat obviously is part of that conversation and is supportive in anything that I want to do. I actually also have other, friends and colleagues that are working within the government, other agencies that have reached out that it could, potentially turn into something. For right now, it was just important, and I did it on faith, that I was not going to get hung out to dry by the DOJ, and I did not. So I do want to they are taking care. I still have a job. I am not jobless. But because of the nature of the timing that I wanted to beat defendants to suing us, I was comfortable with...
So you put the state, you put Delawareans ahead of yourself, is what you did, Julianne.
100%.
Which Baldy and a useless Rochester would never do. They always put themselves ahead of the needs of the people of the first state. right?
Well, and but that's their problem, not mine.
I understand.
I did the right thing and I was willing to do it without knowing exactly where I was going to land. But, as I said to you, I am not a Washington Post person, dear Lord. But my dad texted me last Saturday and said, "Hey, you've made page A2 of the Washington Post."
And I'm not surprised that your dad reads the Washington Compost, by the way.
Neither,
So,
which, that's a whole nother story.
yes, it is.
But what I will say is, the Post article was actually, I'm going to use the word fair, or at least got the essence that I voluntarily did this. And that I stepped out. Now, the libs, you sent me one earlier this week, are claiming a victory lap that they chased me out. Okay, whatever.
Well, let me just say this. Norm Eisen is a POS. You can fill those letters in. Norm Eisen, he should be in prison, by the way, but he's a POS, Julianne, and he's the one that we're referring to, correct?
Yeah. Yes, and when I saw the actual, my mom actually sent me a YouTube. There was a YouTube scene with Norm and this other Katie, whoever. My mom sent to me and said, "Imagine my surprise when my daughter's face is on YouTube, and they're just Julianne Murray's resignation rocks Washington." Gee, okay, and but what is significant about it is that I certainly. And I did this with approval. I also need people to understand. I didn't just wake up and say, "Hey, I'm out of here." I worked this with the department, with the administration, and said, "This is what I think. You guys have to be okay with it." But it certainly sets the table if they're, for the other ones who are acting, whether they're going to do that or not. And that's
well, quickly. And our listener Spiro, producer Spiro, wants to know about the possibility of a recess appointment. I've got to go, but quickly, is that a possibility, Julianne, or no?
I'm told it is not.
It's not. There you go. All right. I love you, my dear friend. And if you're still sniffling when you get back, my Rock and Rye bottle is under the bar. So that will help.
Good.
That will. Yes, it is good, but it will help your sniffles.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, and Merry Christmas to everybody.
All right. Merry Christmas, Julianne. Best to Patrick. We love you both. And my friends, more of Your News Talk America continues in just a moment.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, dial producers, guests, and panelists, and are not necessarily the staff, management, advertisers, sponsors, or ownership of DTD Media or its brands. WGMD 92.7 and 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva, Real News Talk, or Industry News Online.
After World War II, America didn't just help rebuild Europe. We rebuilt your entire future. American money, factories, trade rules, and American security. We co-created NATO, but the U.S. paid for it, so Europe wouldn't have to live in fear again. We built the financial systems that kept your economies alive. For decades, it worked beautifully. I served in the military and then lived in Europe during that time. It was an incredible era. But somewhere along the line, Europe started acting like the partner who enjoys the lifestyle while someone else pays the bills. America handled defense, security, and the global economy, while Europe slowly shifted from partner to critic.
My friends, that voice is Stephen E. Kuhn, global business strategist. He posted that video on X, and I was alerted to it by Stephen's good friend and my good friend, Brigadier General Blaine Holt. Stephen originally hails from Pennsylvania, and he served in the United States Army from 1986 until 1993, spending most of that time in Germany. He spent one tour as a sergeant in Iraq, and upon discharge from the military, Stephen continues to live in Europe, where he became a best-selling author, a multi-country business turnaround leader, political consultant, and he has a very interesting perspective on what's going on in Europe. Stephen, it's an honor to have you on. Thank you so much. I know that you're traveling constantly. Are you in Turkey today? Where are you?
Yes, indeed, I'm in Turkey. We're sitting on the Mediterranean as we speak.
Wow, how about that? Your message to the Europeans. Now, you weren't talking to European leaders. You were talking to European citizens.
Yes.
And they have a lot of skin in the game right now. Obviously, so do Americans, because we shed blood and spent a lot of money to save Europe. But right now, that the future of Europe is very much in doubt, is it not, Stephen?
It is indeed. It's very much in doubt. And the fact is that their leaders have abandoned them. And so I have to speak directly to the European. So Europeans are very law-abiding continent. They follow the rules, especially the Germanics, the Germans, Swiss, and the Austrians. So they're very, they do what they're told, and they follow the rules, and then they follow the laws. And that they've basically complied themselves into the lack of everything, freedom and personal freedoms and liberties. And now I've always talked about the leaders being basically puppets and with no justification for doing what they're doing, or even being in the positions they're in.
Right.
And so I started speaking to the people, and it really struck a chord. Millions and millions. I have like 400 million views over the last 8 months on my video.
Wow. How many, Stephen?
Yeah, 400 million. Over 400
400 million.
Yeah, I have some videos that have been shared like a million times. It's just ridiculous. Yeah.
Wow. Now, there was some activity yesterday. I was going to get to this later on, but we're going down this road, so I figure we might as well discuss it now. There is an attempt by the European Union to sell out European farmers. Once again, what a surprise. And there's a trade deal with the South American bloc called Mercosur. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Stephen?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, well, what can I say? I'm from Queens, New York. I did my best. But farmers drove their tractors yesterday and brought their anger to Brussels. And the Brazilians, can I call them the Brazilians, Stephen? They backed down, at least for a couple of days. Tell us about what's going on within the European Union. Farmers are really ones that have been they've had the loudest voice and have had the biggest pushback within the European Union over the last couple of years. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. It's been going on for years. And what they're doing is they're killing animals, they're killing cattle, they're killing chickens, both in the UK and in the European Union. I was driving from Hungary to Turkey, and I went through and I got stuck in a demonstration with the Greek farmers about 2 years ago.
Wow.
And I got stuck right in the middle. They were like burning fields, and tractors were blocking the streets. And, if you look at Holland, for instance, they were the number one exporter for fruits and vegetables to Europe. The Dutch government's shutting down every farm.
Let me guess, because of climate change, right?
Of course.
Oh, what else?
Of course, yeah.
Right.
And they just cut the subsidies again in Belgium. And so now the farmers are up in arms saying, we're the ones that feed the nation. How can you do this? And this is the whole point, is that until someone's very uncomfortable, people just let it sort of happen. And unfortunately, it has to get to this point for people to stand up. Now, it's just the farmers, and there are some supporters. Some people are hanging back, saying, I don't want to get in trouble. But we're going to have trouble one way or the other.
Well, we've already got it, don't we, Stephen? Don't we already have trouble?
Well, that's the thing. There's too many people that are still too comfortable. Right? There's too many people that still, they go to the store, they get their food, and they're good. Right? They go to work, they come back, they get paid, everything's fine. That foundation is still there. When that foundation starts cracking, then they're going to have a big problem. When you go to the store and there's no food in the store, like it's happened to me in the past in some of the countries that I've lived in, then you start to think like, oh my goodness. Well, some people experienced it during COVID with simple things. There was no more meat in Hungary at one time when I was living there. And you're just like, wow, this is actually happening in the modern world. It's going to get worse before it gets better, especially in Europe, because if America backs out and Europe saying we want to build up to go to war, they can do that. They have weapons, they have armies, all that stuff. But number one, they're not coordinated. They can't talk to each other. I was in the military in Europe. What a cluster, right? Number two, the entire communication and logistics infrastructure is American. So if the Americans pull out, they have armies, but they're lame ducks, right? So all this tough talk about going to Russia and all this kind of stuff is really disheartening, because it's poppycock, I guess you could say on radio.
Yeah, poppycock and boulder jazz. It's a fool's errand. Now, Vice President Vance, the early days of the administration, went to Munich and had a heart-to-heart chat with the globalists in the European Union. They scoffed and laughed at him, but unfortunately right now we have a new national security strategy because they didn't listen. And you say the prenup is torn up and there's going to be a nasty divorce between the United States and Europe, right?
I actually got that quote from General Holt.
Oh, okay. So we'll give credit. He might be watching right now. So General, we attribute that quote to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a divorce, right? It's the prenup's being ripped up. We're divorcing ourselves from Europe. Like, we try to help, we try to make it work, we try to make it, and it's a shame because the European people that I've lived in 8 European countries over the last 37 years, and the Europeans love Americans.
They do.
I don't know any European nation that doesn't love us, and we have the people. And most of the people, when you talk to them, support Trump privately, not openly, but they support him, because he's such sort of taken decisive action.
He's a hero to them. He is a hero to Europeans.
Yeah,
it's something that you don't hear very often. Not on CNN or MSNBC. He is a hero to Europeans.
You won't hear it on Deutsche Welle. You won't hear it on the German TV for sure. You won't hear it on most European TV stations. We have with the AfD in Germany. I'm one of the co-founders of the organization that turned into the AfD. So the leadership are my friends. We have a channel called the Freie Welt, which is the Free World website. It's the 5th most hit website in Germany because it has the real news. They tried to shut us down a couple of times. We moved the servers, I think, to somewhere called Bulletproof Servers or something. They couldn't shut us down. It's a battle to get real news out there. Same thing goes for Ukraine. My wife's Ukrainian, and we brought her family from Kharkiv over to Turkey to get them out of the war back about 3 years ago. And the news there is very sparse as well. It's all nationalistic. It's all anti-Russian. And only the ones that have family outside understand what's going on. So the narrative is ramped up. The pro-war NATO ridiculousness is pushing forward. I've been told by my sources that NATO, they're going to war one way or the other, no matter what, no matter if it's a peace deal. There's no way that they're going to stop.
They believe, and I've asked this to General Holt, Stephen. Stephen E. Kuhn is joining us, by the way, global business strategist who lives in Europe. He talks to Europeans, talks to business leaders in and throughout Europe, and he has a fascinating perspective on what's going on right now. But I talked to General Holt about this a number of times, and he says that the NATO clan thinks that we are going to automatically march with NATO if they decide to go to war against Vladimir Putin. And we know Rutte, or whatever the heck his name is, says get ready for World War III. Within 3 years, NATO's going to be at war with Russia. I just don't think they understand this president is not going to put up with this. This is not George W. Bush.
Well, if you look at what Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, said, and what Mark Rutte said, they said within 2 years. What's within 2 years?
Right.
It's the ending of Trump's term, right? So about 2 years, 2029 is what they're talking about. There's actually a paper that's been written for about 4 years, about the war in the Eurasian corridor, they call it, where they wanted to attack in the first place. And they've been planning this forever. And America was supposed to just sit there and fund it all. And then when Trump came in, he said, no, we're not doing that anymore. And now they're panicking, and they're trying to steal the money from Putin. That was shot down again today. More and more countries are getting on board. They're shooting that down. I mean, they're basically, you have 2 countries at war. Neither one of them are in NATO or in Europe. And you got Europe and NATO saying, take the money from the one and give it to the other. Just think about that in common sense terms.
Isn't that money laundering? Stephen, isn't that money laundering?
Well, you're taking assets. They can't take the money, so they want to write guarantees against the money. Basically, the guarantors, who are they? They're the taxpayers.
Right, of course, that we always are.
Yeah.
Now, my wife and I spent 2 weeks on the Amalfi Coast in October, and we decided.
We were there in October. We were there in Amalfi.
We could have been staying. What hotel did you stay in?
We were in Sorrento.
So were we. So were we. So we were in, I think, the Riviera. Is that the hotel, the Riviera?
I don't remember. My wife does all that stuff.
So we decided to take a cooking class.
Oh.
And this was an 80-something-year-old retired teacher who got the went to school for the Michelin restaurant award, and she was teaching the class. And all of a sudden, in the middle of teaching us how to make tiramisu, she turns around and she says to me, "We know all about your deep state here in Italy." She said, "We support Trump." So I said, "Well, what about your prime minister? She is pretty cute." She goes, "Oh, we don't trust her. We think she's a puppet. We think she's a puppet." And, everyone I asked in Italy, from our drivers to people we would talk to in restaurants and so forth, they say the same thing. They support Trump. They think their government is far too under the control of the European Union. What do you say to that?
The globalists. Yeah, the European. You got to remember, Okay, the Italian prime minister or the Hungarian prime minister, partially the Polish prime minister, a little bit of Czech Republic, a little bit of Slovakia, they're sort of conservative, right? Okay,
Right.
Orban's very conservative.
Oh,
He's also
definitely.
corrupt.
Yes.
He's also corrupt, but I worked with the Hungarian government quite interesting time.
Oh, okay. So you know.
Yeah, and I've also worked with the German government. I've worked with the European Parliament. I've worked with the British and the Croatian as well, and advising them and helping them set up programs and things like that. And they are under the control of the globalists, and they have one foot on each camp, and then they sort of slide back and forth, and do what's right. Because if you go full on frontal attack, you're going to lose. You're going to lose right now. The leverage is completely by the globalists. The European Union, you got Ursula von der Leyen.
Oh, don't mention her name to General Holt.
I know the president who's under fraud charges when she was defense minister in Germany. Then you got I forget what his name is from Portugal, the second in charge. Same thing. He's under charges. So they send him to the European Union and say, "Do what we say, and you'll stay out of jail." So they sit up there. They lie. They know they're lying. We know they're lying. And they still lie, and they smile and act like it's real. And it's just, to me, and this is why, in my opinion, they're not being invited to the peace talks, because they have no legitimacy.
Right.
She was a teacher. Look at Macron, was nothing. He never did anything in his life. He had 2 desk jobs waiting out his time to become prime minister or to become president or prime minister. What is he, president? President.
Yeah, president. He can't keep a prime minister. They change every 2 weeks. Yeah.
And so these people are they're just good looking orators. Ursula looks like grandma. Okay, one of the guys even said that to me. How can she be so mean? She looks like a grandmother. I'm like, that's the point, right? They trick you with optics, and most people, that's enough for them. Oh, he looks great. She looks great. She looks fine. Doesn't look mean. They'll be okay. And they go about their daily day. The next thing you know, they're running out of fuel, running out of gas, food.
Because of their decisions, they did it.
Yes,
they did it.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, we have to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about this new national security strategy and the wedge that it's driving between the U.S. And the European Union, the European continent. And I've got a bunch of questions on our digital interactive board. This is an interactive radio show where we have listeners who volunteer as producers, and they monitor the broadcast and they upload questions for our panelists. You obviously are panelists right now. I have a bunch of questions for you. I'd like to tackle those when we return.
Wow, great.
All right, thank you. Back with Stephen Kuhn on Your News Talk America. Stay with us.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, dial producers, guests, and panelists, and are not necessarily the staff, management, advertisers, sponsors, or ownership of DTD Media or its brands. WGMD 92.7 and 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva, Real News Talk, or Industry News Online.
Today, we certainly wish our Jewish voters too, viewers and listeners, a very happy Hanukkah. And joining us, we're very pleased to have with us Stephen E. Kuhn, Global Business Strategist. Stephen, got a bunch of questions for you. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you that there are more questions uploaded for you than I've ever seen for any other previous panelist on our digital interactive Friday broadcast. First one from our producer 3M, who says, there are a lot of groups out there, here in America, try to educate American citizens, such as Hillsdale College, PragerU, Heritage Foundation. Are you promoting Take America Back? Are they making enough inroads? What is it going to take? Well, obviously, the relationship with Europe is weaker. Has it made America weaker? I guess that's a fair follow-up question to that.
Well, let's talk about Take America Back first. Take America Back is something I just founded, and it's about educating citizen servant leaders on how to start on the bottom and work your way up on a foundation of our republic's constitution, morals, and integrity. And there's actually a certification program coming out. There's an entire media channel coming out called Tab Media. And then we have the Take America Back Foundation. That's all in the form right now. General Holt's a big part of that as well. So that's that part. It's gonna basically train people at the bottom level so they can go into city council, school boards, and things like that, and work their way up to the government.
Where it matters. Where
we have one standard, right? And it's very, very rigid. You do not qualify if you are this, beholden, ego first, all this kind of stuff. It's very, very tight. The book's coming out as well. I just sent it to General Holt and as we were sitting here. And as far as hurting our relationship with Europe, well, it's not. for me, wherever I go, they go, please save us. I literally get messages. They're like, I can do something, right? Please save us. Please help us. Help us in Sweden. Help us in Norway. Help us in Germany. Stephen, you understand us. Please help us. Now, if you got to realize, I've lived abroad for 37 years.
Yeah.
Right? In 10 countries, 8 of those in Europe. And I worked in almost all those governments as well. And so, like, I know the people. I know the cultures. I know the innuendos and the in-betweens. And I know that with the standards and the policies and the way that we think in America, we can absolutely take Europe back, if you will. But right now, it's under the control of the globalists. It's under control of the empire, if you will. And it's going to be a long fight to get them out of there. But the people have to do it. There's millions and billions of people on the planet, and there's only a few million politicians. So if we just get that through our heads and stand up.
There's more of us than there are them. Absolutely, Stephen.
Not in revolution, but with standards and quality and integrity, standing up and demanding this. For me, it's a non-negotiable. Look, I'll be turning 60 here soon, and this is something I never thought I would do. It came as a refusal to live in contradiction with what I believe, right? So that's basically saying, like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to go out and make a difference.
And you have.
Well, I'm doing my best, and I got to tell you that the Take America Back that I've found that I've already got people wanting to open up chapters like take UK back, take Norway back.
Wow. Well, the UK is going to be tough with all that's going on there, and I'm sure you heard or saw the video back on Veterans Day of that 100-year-old veteran who said, "I don't know why we went to Europe to fight." You saw that, didn't you?
Yeah, oh yeah.
On morning TV in London. I don't even know why we did it. It just seems that we fought for nothing, and I wonder how many veterans in Europe feel the same way right now.
Yeah, well, I'm one of them. So yeah, I don't. I was here during the Cold War. I looked across to Ivan and all that kind of stuff. But I think if we boil away all of the big picture, this nationalistic or international sort of furor that we have keeps us distracted from what's happening at the foundation. That's where we sit. That's where we can make a difference.
And and you're right. General Holt talks about that quite a bit as well. Let me get to 3M's follow-up question. People like you and General Holt suggest President Trump is fighting the globalists and deep state, which is great. But are you concerned about his comments about the national debt, which he said was peanuts? Well, the national debt's a big problem, but then again, Europe has indebtedness problems, don't they?
Indeed, they do. Very, very big ones. People like to compare the GDPs and compare the debt to the GDP, but it's a completely different system. In Europe, they have the social systems. You have free healthcare, basically free healthcare. You have, child. You can stay on. A mother can go on maternity leave for like 3 years in some of the countries. You have paid vacation, 30 to 20.
Early retirement.
All that. Well, that's going up and up and up. I think in Germany now it's 67. I think it is. It used to be 62. Yeah. And of course you have VAT, value added tax. It's 27% in Hungary. It's 19% in Germany. So these are different kinds of structures. You can't compare it to America. Everyone says, "Oh, wow, the social systems in Europe are great." Well, yeah, if you want to pay for them, they're great. And you get used to it. It's all relative. But now I forgot the question, but
well, no, the question was, are you concerned about the comment that the national debt, President Trump said, was peanuts? Well, again, Europe has indebtedness, so do we. I don't agree with President Trump saying that it's peanuts. We have a serious deficit.
Well, this is the thing we're talking about again. So, is it something that we can affect right now? No. So we can make a comment on it, but we're not going to change it. The thing is this: the numbers nowadays that you have, there's more debt than there ever was money on the planet. It's a push of a button. It's another zero. It's another comma. It's another comma. It's another zero. There's more debt than there is gold. There's more debt than there is anything worth value on the planet. So it's not even real money, right? So if there's a digital transfer to everything, that's where it's going to be written off. If there's a digital transfer, if there's a crash, if there's a devaluation, a demarcation, that's where it'll be written off. I'm almost sure of it. I think that's why he's saying it like that. Is what I'm hearing is they're gonna knock it down, devalue it, and then write it off. That's how they can sort of flip it. And honestly, it would if check this out. If there was a transaction fee of 50 cents on every transaction that everyone ever made in a bank, and they just got rid of all these negative interest charges, the world would be debt free in about 10 years.
Wow.
The entire planet. But no one wants to make money. They want debt because that's where they make their money. So
that is true. There are those who actually like debt. Last question we're going to have time for, Stephen, and this comes from our producer, Wolf. Is the post-Merkel Germany salvageable, or is it too far gone? You spent a lot of time in Germany, but what do you expect for a country that elects a chancellor called Fred Merz? Right?
I never thought of that. Because I'm so used to the Friedrich, the German. Fred, you're right. It is Fred, isn't it?
It's Fred Merz.
I like to think it's not gone. Look, I'm very, very involved with the AfD. Beatrix von Storch and Sven, her husband, they were just in D.C. Sven was just in Chile and just saved that election down there as well from saved the election for the conservatives.
Right.
I say we can still save it. Let's look for March. Let's look for the elections in Germany. We're going to take it. We're going to take Germany back. We're going for
I hope so. Stephen, love to have you back on the program again. God bless.
Let's do it.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, dial producers, guests, and panelists, and are not necessarily the staff, management, advertisers, sponsors, or ownership of DTD Media or its brands. WGMD 92.7 and 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva, Real News Talk, or Industry News Online.
Back on your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday, your anchorman Jake Smith with you until noon Eastern Time. Just heard from General Holt. He enjoyed the segment with Stephen Kuhn, and I am very pleased that the General was watching. Thank you, General Holt. My friends, a lot going on, and the situation with respect to Brown University and the murder of the professor at MIT. If you combine that, and I talked about this in the monologue this morning when we opened the show, if you combine that with the terrorist attack at Bondi Beach in Australia, in Sydney last week, all of the death and destruction that came forth last weekend happened by way of visas that were handed off to people who should have been in their countries, in the countries in which they committed their crimes to begin with. Let's welcome in Rob Carson, host of The Rob Carson Show. How are you, my friend? Thanks for some time this morning. I know this is your prime prep time for your show, but Rob, thanks so much. And boy,
absolutely. I'm knee deep in show prep. Of course.
But Rob, what are your thoughts? I mean, the mayor in Providence reminded me of Mayor Pete.
Oh my God!
I mean, the police chief there. What a blank show. It starts with an S, ends with a T. You can't say it on the radio, but the whole thing was an embarrassment. Is there any wonder that this crime took days, almost a week to solve? What do you think?
Well, you're dealing with adult children. If you listen to that mayor, he was more concerned about emoting and showing how much emotion he felt for the death of two people.
Yeah, but that's Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete does that, right?
Of course. And these are adult children. They are utterly unprepared for life. They are unable to deal with adult situations in an adult fashion. That's why they look like morons. And then they reward bad behavior by bringing in the chief of police on campus, who's a complete moron, who literally the entire campus police squad gave him a vote of no confidence a week ago, completely inept. But because he checks a couple boxes, right, he gets a job. The same goes with, the last vice president. It is remarkable. These people are academics. These people are completely clueless. They think if they wish things to happen, they will happen. They don't happen. And then when bad things happen, they have no idea how to either stop them or deal with them afterwards.
But each one of the people who died last weekend died because visas were handed out to people who committed crimes. They were either terrorists or they committed crimes. And when are we going to wake up? When is this nonsense going to stop, Rob?
It's happening now. The Trump administration is doing something about it right now, and it's about time. And I got to tell you, and I hope the next step is to hold those accountable for stuffing a Trojan horse with our enemies and bringing them into the country, like Alejandro Mayorkas are brought up on treason charges. I mean, I really believe this, and I'm not afraid to say he should face life in prison or be lined up against the wall, because what they did caused the death of hundreds of thousands of Americans, the needless suffering of hundreds of thousands of children who were trafficked for work and sex. What happened to this country was an intentional takedown of our country by an army. They weren't carrying weapons.
Nope.
They were the weapons.
No question about it. The opening of our borders was a deliberate attempt by the Demcoms, as I call them, to take down the Republic of the United States of America. But the question is, who are they working for? They're working for the globalists. Yes. They're the ones that want to take down the United States, Rob, correct?
They want to take down any Western democracy. They want to take down Great Britain, and it looks like they're doing a very good job of it. They wanted to take down Poland. Poland fought back. They want to take down France. France is in the throes of this right now. Yep. They wanted to take down Australia. It's the same. Every single of those countries went through the exact same things that we have gone through. It was a plan: open borders, destroy the nations as founded, usher in a new era of whatever it is, anarchy, whatever. But that's what it's been all about. And I think we may have nipped it in the bud. You've got freedom spreading now through South and Central America like wildfire. You've got the possibility of a conservative coming into power eventually in France and turning that around. And we've got several other countries in Europe that are turning things around. But right now, France and England and the United States, to a lesser degree, but Australia, they're all on the cusp. And I think their people have had enough, to be quite honest.
I mean, the Prime Minister of Australia, I mean, you talk about weakness. I mean, every news conference that we saw this weekend, whether it's Australia, whether it's Bondi Beach, or whether it's Brown University, all they did was express weakness.
Yes.
Would you agree, Rob? Not strength.
Of course.
Not Trump's strength, that's for sure.
No, not at all. And, he says diversity is our strength. No, diversity is your weakness. Diversity shows you are weak. Diversity shows that you would rather have malfeasance like what happened in Minnesota happen than say anything about it so you're not called a racist. It's the equivalent of having a liquor store with a sign in the front window that says gun-free zone. It's the same damn thing, dude. It's the same bloody thing.
No, you're absolutely right. And, we're in a situation right now where the Demcoms are trying to stop every effort by the Trump administration with regard to safeguarding the American people, safeguarding the homeland. Yeah. And, I wonder as we head into 2026 in the midterms, how much of an issue is that going to be? Because President Trump can't even get his U.S. attorneys confirmed by the United States Senate.
Well, I think that the tide is beginning to turn. Mike Lee was commenting this morning about how Republicans need to come together and find another end game to get around the Democrats. I think that's going to happen. I also think that we have to learn to operate in a vacuum of zero good news coming from the mainstream media. Nothing that Donald Trump has done so far this year, even though it's historical, is being heard. That's what that speech about was the other night. He even tricked the media to believe it was going to be something else. Yeah. And Trump got his message out. And I think that what's going to happen is the good news is going to overwhelm the lies and the negativity of the press in 2026 as we enter the 250th year of the country, culminating with an MMA fight on the White House ground. I'm going to be there. If I have to serve drinks, I'm going to be there.
Are you going to use the facilities, the restroom in the Trump ballroom?
Hell,
Will you
yeah.
there for
the
that's why they're so pissed off about the ballroom, because it's going to be forever known, Rob, as the Trump ballroom. Just like the new Trump Kennedy Center. Or Kennedy Trump Center.
Oh, my God, the Trump Senate Kennedy Center. They were going to implode that building. It was a piece of crap. It was falling apart. When I lived here 10 years ago, I went and saw an awful musical. I saw Young Frankenstein. It was a terrible musical. Yeah. And I looked at this theater, and I'm like, I have seen theaters in Rockville, Illinois that are better than this. Nothing against Rockville. No, actually, everything against Rockville, Illinois. It's a hell of But anyway, so Donald Trump went in there, and he's a developer. I mean, it's so funny. If they were going to build the damn ballroom, who would they hire? They would hire somebody like Donald Trump because he's the best of the best of the best. But because he's Donald Trump, they hate him. Same goes with the Kennedy Center. I love that he's rubbing their faces in it.
Oh, I do too.
And it's just so infuriating. Oh my God, Whoopi Goldberg, your head exploding over giving troops $1,776. Oh my God, it's so glorious.
Rob, last question. The naval blockade around Venezuela, it just seems that we're poised for some type of significant action against Maduro. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. It's not going to require boots on the ground. It won't need to do that. We've got enough firepower, drones, missiles, et cetera, to do it. And all it's going to take is a little boop to knock him out. Honestly, the military will collapse immediately. There may be a surgical strike against Maduro himself. We've got all the intelligence we need, but clearly it's about having a big stick. And it won't require boots on the ground, but Maduro is going to fall. That's all there is to it. And the people will be behind him, and the military will be too.
My friends, Rob Carson Show coming up today, noon Eastern Time. Our flagship station, 98.5, will air Rob's show starting at 6 minutes past noon. My friend, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you.
You guys do such a great job, and to all of your listeners, God bless each and every one of you. I love your station. I love the region. I'm going to get a tiny house in Sussex County. I'm going to do it.
Well, if you do, you've got to invite me over for a drink, Rob.
Do it and a cigar. Come on, baby. Woo!
Rob, thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
My friends, we're going to be talking with Ryan Morgan, reporter for the Epoch Times, about some international things coming up. More of Your News Talk America in just a moment.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, dial producers, guests, and panelists, and are not necessarily the staff, management, advertisers, sponsors, or ownership of DTD Media or its brands. WGMD 92.7 and 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva, Real News Talk, or Industry News Online.
Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday continues. I got a comment from the control room, Master Control. By the way, thanks to Mark and to Snerdley and to Walt, who's handling the audio side of this, the terrestrial radio operations. But apparently my Santa shirt, which is it is a red shirt, which looks like the same color as a Santa Claus suit. I wore it specifically today because I was going to be on camera, but apparently it's causing the cameras some difficulty. Uh-oh. Well, I guess we'll have to talk about that following today's Digital Interactive Friday. Well, my friends, I have been aware for probably since I've been on this earth, and I was born in 1957. The John Birch Society was founded in 1958. They are a nonpartisan civics and education organization. And if you're concerned about where Americanism is going, I call it Americanism, because this nation right now, and all that we stood for and stand for as we enter our 250th anniversary, is on life support. It really is. It just seems like half the country, if they were told all of your constitutional protections were eliminated tomorrow, they would say, okay, I'll just move on. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. But I want to wait and say we should not do that and talk to the president, of the, I was looking at the wrong part of my script. It's right here. The president of the John Birch Society, Bill Jasper, joins us. Bill, thank you so much. And I've been aware of the John Birch Society. I have to admit to you, honestly, that I knew what the John Birch Society was, what they stood for, but you're actively involved, the John Birch Society is, in trying to save Americanism, right?
Absolutely. And I'm glad I'm glad you put it in those terms, because Americanism is a term that Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society, didn't coin, but he made it a watchword for all Americans, because we have a very unique system here in the United States. And so you mentioned you were born in 57. I was born in 52, so same era. Mm-hmm. And I grew up, went to college. While I was in college, I heard about the John Birch Society, and I thought, oh, these are terrible right-wing extremist, racist, and
Oh, you mean you had Marxist socialist professors back then too?
absolutely, absolutely, and at a supposedly conservative university.
Oh boy.
So I've been subjected to all of that 50 years ago. So I've been with the John Birch Society for 50 years. So I just got out of college. I re-educated myself. What people need to understand is that what we see going on now, and particularly going back to the first Trump administration, where President Trump and anyone associated with him, anyone MAGA, anyone conservative, anyone pro-life, pro-family, pro-gun, whatnot, were deplorables, were racist, fascist, misogynist.
You forgot Nazi.
Nazi, Gestapo.
Yeah.
So those smears have kind of lost their sting, and it's made people reevaluate. Okay, yes, there are genuinely racist people in the world. There are genuinely fascist people in the world. It's a very, very tiny minority of people. Most people who are being designated as such are simply trying to save and restore the American Republic and the system that we have here. They believe in patriotism and in loving God, family, country. And that's what the John Birch Society was founded to do, to expose those who are in our society who are trying to destroy it. And there really are folks here in this country who want to destroy America. And we have been married.
Or if I can just stop you there, they're okay if someone else destroys America, Bill. They're okay with that. They can live with it.
Absolutely, and so,
that's scary in itself.
It is, and so I have done a lot of speaking on college campuses, and I can attest that it is enemy-occupied territory. It was already getting that way when I was at the university 50 years ago. Over the last half century, we've seen all of those who were, at that time, burning down the universities, the SDS, the Weathermen, etc. I mean, we had actual terrorists, the Bill Ayers, the Bernadine Dorns, all of those folks became professors. And then they taught their graduate students who became professors. And so now you have a couple of generations that have grown up in academia, and many of them go on then into the media and into teaching and other professions, and they have really transferred this toxic philosophy throughout our society. And so that's what we see now with everything that President Trump is trying to do. And I'm also a journalist, have been for the last 50 years, and I'm the senior editor of the New American Magazine, which is published by the John Birch Society.
Right.
And for many years, over 3 decades, was our correspondent at the United Nations in New York and at UN.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yes, that was a very grueling, brutal.
Sorry to hear that, Bill.
Yeah. So for decades, I was the only conservative journalist in the press pool, the cesspool at the United Nations and at these UN summits. And so, so I saw firsthand at many of these events at the UN and at various summits when Fidel Castro would walk in and all the delegates would jump.
Oh, they'd fawn over him.
Viva Fidel, viva Fidel. But even my colleagues, the comrades in the press corps, did the same. They all jumped up, Viva Fidel. So where I come from, that's called a clue. It tells you where these folks' hearts and minds are.
Is this the same UN that turned the escalators off when President Trump and Melania were going up just last month?
Yes, coincidentally, it just turned out that way. So they were trying to send a message. They were trying to put him off. Actually, it worked in his favor because
it did.
He went off script and he said what really needed to be said about the United Nations and particularly about many of their socialist, communist programs like the Green New Deal for shutting down the whole planet with so-called environmental regulations. And And so we have been, of course, at the John Birch Society for nearly 60 years, promoting the program to get us out of the United Nations and get the United Nations out of the United States. And for the first time in all those years, we have legislation in both the Senate and the House to do that, the Defund Act. And it would not only cut off all of the billions of dollars that we send, not only to the UN, but to the dozens of agencies which it has in Geneva.
Which is used as a weapon against the United States, I might add, that money.
As we saw with the World Health Organization, which was the vehicle that was used to
That's right.
put the worldwide shutdown, the mandates, et cetera, under COVID. So, we have made progress in that sphere.
Let me ask some questions if I can, and some of those are on our dial board. We have an interactive program where we have viewers and listeners who volunteer to be producers, and they monitor the show and then they upload questions. And I have some questions for you. Do you believe that our federal government right now in the 21st century, 249 years that this nation has been in existence, is at war with freedom itself, Bill Jasper?
Well, absolutely. There is, in the last few years, a term, the deep state, which has become coin of the realm now, and people understand that there are forces at work within our government, the unelected government, permanent government, which has been running through both Republican and Democrat administrations, which is why we see always the leftward drift, always taking us toward bigger and bigger government, less and less freedom, more socialist control, and more dependence on foreign countries for everything that we need. So yes, there is, and we have been somewhat unique, although some others have caught on to it as well, that there is a brain trust which is running this anti-government, or rather anti-American government operation, and that's the Council on Foreign Relations. And they are presented as a very prestigious think tank, but they have for over a century now. They were formed in 1921, so it's been over a century now. They have been promoting this whole idea of globalism and merging all of the world together. So yes, there is a evil force within our government that is pushing us toward globalism and away from our constitutional republic.
There is a project, the Make America States Again Action Project. Tell us about it and what it is, if you would, Bill Jasper.
Yeah, so Make America States Again, of course, MASA is playing off of the MAGA acronym.
Right, of course, yeah.
And it's very important for pointing out to the American people that we are supposed to be a compound republic. That's how the founders described it in the Federalist Papers, that we are a compound republic, meaning we have a republic at the national level where the national government has enumerated powers, delegated powers in the Constitution. So the executive, judicial, and legislative branches are all specifically enumerated what they may do. And then in the 10th Amendment, it says those powers not delegated to the United States nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states or to the people. So the founders' recipe was that the vast majority of governing would be done at the state and local level. And so they reserved all those powers that they didn't specifically delegate to the national government to the states. But what we have seen, particularly since the New Deal, since FDR's all-encompassing push for federal government control over everything, is we've seen a proliferation of so-called independent agencies that are regulatory, the administrative state, the EPA,
Right. It's the new Congress.
Right. And so
it's the new Congress. We have a dysfunctional Congress, and basically the administrative state has replaced it. Right.
And this has been done by abdication of responsibility.
No question.
Congress is supposed to, but it's easier for Congress to say, okay, we're going to take care of environmental problems. We're going to create this agency, which was done under a Republican administration, the Nixon administration, and we're going to let them legislate. Well, the Constitution says all legislative powers shall be vested in Congress. Congress said, okay, we'll let them do that. Then we can blame them when people get mad at their heavy-handed regulations and whatnot. And we can say, well, we're trying to work with it. So
it's not us. It's not us. It's the EPA. Yeah, right. So well, let me ask you a question. At what point, if we are going to have the Make America States Again Action Project be effective, what about repealing the 17th Amendment? I'm of the opinion that has got to happen, and it's got to happen soon. The United States Senate is out of control. It has got to go back to the states, which is what the founders wanted. The states' legislatures should be in charge of the United States Senate. What do you think?
Bingo. You are very rare in pointing that out. We've been harping on that for decades, and most people, Americans, don't quite grasp that yet. They say that, well, one man, one vote, of course. We want to be able to elect our senators. They don't understand the founders' recipe. What the senators are supposed to represent the state. What does it mean? That means that each state. I live in a small populous state, Idaho. We still have 2 senators. So that gives us some leverage against California, New York, so they can't just run over the top of us.
Right.
People say, well, that isn't fair. It's the same argument they make with the Electoral College. Right. Yes, the founders recognize that, hey, just as a matter of fairness, we have to have the smaller, less populous states have equal representation because each of these states are sovereign states, and they wanted to be, if they wanted to be brought into the Union, they had to have some protection against the big urban centers. And so that's very important to get back to that. If we're going to have the state governments, who are then, the senators are then elected by the state legislature.
Correct.
So the states then have some leverage over the federal government, and they can say, hey, we're not going to go along with this law. We're going to nullify this law. And they can do that. That's what the founders intended. So if you pass federal legislation and we don't like it, it's not going to work here. If it's violating the state's reserved powers, we're not going to recognize it here.
Bill Jasper, President John Birch Society, is joining us here on Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. Our producer 3M has a question for you, Bill, if I may. He asks, if I could read just one of your books, which one would you recommend? Bill Jasper?
Okay, so I've written 2 books on the United Nations based on my experience at the UN. I have a number of other books that are in various stages, but those are the 2 that are published. And both of them are available. One is, which came out in 1992, right after I attended the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, and it's called Global Tyranny, Step by Step, the United Nations and the Emerging New World Order.
Wow.
And that gives the most comprehensive history of the United Nations and the whole communist background, going from Alger Hiss, the infamous Soviet spy who was the Secretary General at the founding conference, all the way up through 1992 in the Earth Summit. Then I had a decade later came out with another book, The United Nations Exposed, and both of those are available. And probably the easiest read is United Nations Exposed, and it's available at our at jbs.org. Go there, and we have a bookstore, jbs.org for the
jbs.org. Well, at the very least, as bad as it was being at the UN, at least there are some good restaurants on the east side of Manhattan off First Avenue, right?
Yes, I was just there last week, not at the UN. I was there at a big confab, Republican confab, and I was able to reacquaint myself with some of the old
finer cuisine that New York offers.
Yeah.
Bill, fascinating discussion. I would like to continue because I deal with a lot of questions from our listeners and our viewers about how to save American culture, how to save Americanism. And we need to keep having this discussion because it's constantly under attack. Our government, our media, constantly attacking. And the better that we are educated and situated to defend our nation and defend our culture and defend the republic, then we are eventually going to succeed. We will be victorious. And I'm hopeful that you will be able to come back at some point and talk further on this topic, because I think we need to keep discussing it. It's that important. If we lose the 2026 midterms, we lose the country. Everything that President Trump has accomplished since January is history.
It's going to be constant impeachment, subpoenas, investigations, lawfare, constantly. So, yes, it's very important. I'd be delighted to come back on anytime.
Bill, thank you. You have an open invitation, and I'll talk to Sutton about that as well. Bill Jasper, President, John Birch Society. Bill, what an interesting discussion. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right. You're watching Your News Talk America. Back with more. Salute the troops and as well in just a moment. Please stay with us. To honor those men and women who have defended freedom whenever and wherever it was threatened, the Talk of Delmarva presents Salute the Troops. On Wednesday, President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania attended the dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base of 2 Iowa National Guard members who were murdered by Syrian-based ISIS terrorists in Syria last week. The guardsmen were identified as Sergeant Nate Howard and Sergeant Edgar Brian Torres Tovar. If not for the commitment to serve, if not for the ultimate sacrifice in Syria of Sergeants Nate Howard and Edgar Brian Torres Tovar, this nation could not. This nation would never have remained free. May this grateful nation never forget the names Nate, Howard, and Edgar Brian Torres Tovar. Please remember to pray for the families they leave behind. For Salute the Troops, I'm Jake Smith. Your News Talk America. As we wind down this Digital Interactive Friday, it's been a very interesting program. I thought we had some outstanding panelists today. Thank you to our Dial producers for all their activity, and there was a lot of activity. I'm sorry that I did not have enough time to get to all the questions for Stephen Kuhn, but I promise you he will be back. He was very pleased with the segment, and I'm thinking maybe we'll have Stephen and General Holt back together on the program, and that would make for a very interesting segment indeed. Now, there was a question that you may have had as to why Digital Interactive Friday between 10 and noon, we're not playing Christmas bumper music. Well, if I was just doing on the radio, and the first hour I did play Christmas bumper music, but when we're streaming video, there are copyright issues. And I called Walt this morning. Actually, I texted him and said, hey, can we do Christmas bumper music during Digital Interactive Friday between 10 and noon? And generally, listen to this. Traditional hymns or carols published before 1929 or with no known copyright restrictions can be aired. Silent Night, 1818. I could not find any recording of Silent Night from 1818. My friends, you have a voice. Make sure your voice is heard loud and clear. Millie, Triel, you're home. Have a great weekend. See you back at it Monday morning on Your News Talk America.